don't know what death is.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am, of course, your host, Grant, from One Fair Review, and today we are looking at Halloween, the sequel to Halloween, which makes no fucking sense. I don't know why they just decided to call it Halloween and decide to say it's a sequel, not a soft reboot. So this is the sequel to Halloween. Halloween. They couldn't have just put Michael Myers, which would have been fine if they had just done that. I mean, Halloween, the title, I have no problem. Well, anyways, fuck it. Who cares about the title? I just watched this movie. Yesterday night I watched this movie, and I have to admit, before coming out and watching the movie, I was very skeptical of the film itself. I was very cautiously optimistic. I knew John Carpenter was coming back in some way. Jamie Lee Curtis was coming back as Laurie Strode, so I was like, okay, maybe there will be something there. But, I was never really hopeful. I was never really excited for another Halloween sequel. I mean, there's been so many, and most of them have been terrible and pointless, except for the first two sequels. I do believe to be the second one I believe to be good, and the third one is a decent film, completely disconnected from the Halloween franchise. But anyways, this is the follow-up. 40 years later, Michael Myers is in prison, and I think everybody kind of knows the basic story. Michael Myers eventually gets loose and starts killing people. So the twist to this one is that Jamie Lee Curtis, playing Laurie Strode in her elderly age, has been prepping for this day her whole life. She is a survivalist, I guess you could say, and her goal is to hunt down Michael Myers and to just kill him once and for all. And that's pretty much the story of the movie. There's, of course, little things in between the movie, but I have to say, one thing that really did catch my eye is that there really wasn't a lot of plot to get in the way of the movie. There was really not much depth to it whatsoever. I mean, in the beginning, they try to have that, and stuff that you think will matter later on plays absolutely no part, and that's not a bad thing. They show you, no, this doesn't matter. This won't play a part. Forget about it. And they do it in really clever ways, getting rid of stuff that you thought was going to be a big thing. Instead, they say no, it's not a big thing, and they move on, and they just get to the straight up the point of the story, which is Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers. Now, by no means is this a versus movie. It is still a horror and a thriller, and I have to say, really nailed it. And I mean this in the most sincere way right now. I absolutely love this movie, every minute of it. It wasn't a perfect movie by any means. I don't think it's perfect, but as far as modern horror movies go, this is like the best that I've seen so far. A year ago, I guess, I reviewed It, and one of the problems I had with It was that I liked the story between the kids, and all the stuff with the kids I loved. I thought it was great. But when it came to Pennywise, who I do think the actor did a great job, I thought that they kind of messed up the idea of him. They made him a little bit too creepy looking, and the horror elements just gave me a headache. It was so just like modern day horror, jump scare, loud noises all day, and I left the theater having a headache. And what was amazing about Halloween is I left the theater completely intact. I didn't have a headache. The volume never rose above what it needed to rise above. That doesn't mean there aren't jump scares. There are, but they're very small and very tamed, and like I said, it never like is like boom in your face, like whoa. I don't get scared by jump scares. A few of these did get me because it was like, oh, that was clever. That was really clever what they did. But I have to say, a large part of the scariness, a large part of the creepiness, just comes from Michael Myers and him doing his thing.
I'm gonna pick that one over on across the street. Yeah. Oh, what the? Hey, sorry, but sorry.
Get out of here! Now! Go, guys, go! Get inside!
You know, a lot of the like jump scares are usually just the sound effects, the music that kicks in, and then you see Michael do something horrific, and it's really well done. It feels like a 70s to 80s horror movie, like with all the grittiness, because this movie, I mean, it does look good. It looks like a modern movie, but it's so gritty. It's so just dirty. It's not like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake where it's like everything's so polished and looks fake. No, this feels like a somewhat low budget movie, horror movie, and I really like that. And in a way, I was very nostalgic, not necessarily for Halloween and Michael Myers itself, the movies, but just for like old horror movies and how they were made back then, and the stuff that they were able to get away with, and the how much they were able to do. You know, some of the really disgusting and creepy stuff that used to go on that you never see anymore because they don't like to take chances, of course. This one doesn't necessarily take chances, really. It is your standard kind of Halloween premise, just Michael Myers gets out and starts killing people. But it's so well done that you really, there's no real complaints that I really have about the movie. I thought the acting was pretty good. Yeah, for the most part, the acting was pretty good. Jamie Lee Curtis does a great job, and you know, all the actors, Judy Greer, Andy Machak, I don't know how to pronounce her name. You know, all of them did a great job. All the girls, I guess you could say, and even the other characters in the movie. You know, Hawkins, the police officer. You know, you had the doctor, the new Loomis, which they point out in the movie, like, oh, you're the new Loomis, which no, he's not. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just like, no, he's not the new Loomis. And when you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about if you see the movie. But all the actors do their job very well. They're all well acted, and you know, it's nothing like remarkable. It's not necessarily like Oscar worthy, of course, but again, they're not trying to, you know, get an Oscar. So they do their job, and it's very effective, is what I'm saying. As far as the Michael Myers goes, I mean, they portray him the way he's supposed to be portrayed, just like this evil force of nature. They don't overly explain him. They don't have him talk. They don't have him do anything, which I guess you could consider that a spoiler, but fuck you if you don't know that by now. But I really like that. It was everything that the remake should have been, but wasn't. Like, they nailed Michael. This is how Michael was supposed to be, just this evil, pure evil. That's what he is. And he doesn't talk. He doesn't really have a personality. He's just there to kill you. He is a psychopath. He is a serial killer. Like, there's nothing more to the character, and you don't need to explain how he is that way. That's just how he is, and that's what makes him really, really scary, in my opinion. That's what makes him really scary. He's so realistic in a way, while also being like this movie monster. The practical effects were superb. They did a great job. I don't think there was any CGI. Then again, I'd have to watch the movie again to really like look around. I didn't see any CGI, and if there was, it would be pretty weird. They don't really need it, but I do guarantee there was probably some touch-ups there. But for the most part, everything was practical, and it looked very nice, and it was made in the old Halloween style. And they didn't go too far. They didn't even show you some of the kills, which it's effective here. It's effective, believe me, because you see the aftermath. But everything here is effective. Like, the movie's disturbing at times, the movie's scary at times. And when I mean scary, I mean like you're real fucking tense while watching this movie. Like, during the last act especially, it was just, there's so much tension building up, which is what a good horror movie should do. And there are parts in the movie where it's like I wasn't scared necessarily of oh, they startled me with a jump scare, but I was scared I'm not gonna spoil what happens, but for somebody, I was scared for them. So it was like, oh God, please. So stuff like that, the tension that builds and all that, like it was very effective. It worked very well. Unlike It, where I kind of knew what was gonna happen. Well, no, I knew exactly what was gonna happen, so it wasn't that much tension. Here, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like they anybody was game at this point, and I do love how like I said earlier, some characters in this movie will be presented and it will be like, oh, they'll have a big part, but it's like, no, they don't. They're just there. The way the movie's shot, it's shot very beautifully. I have no complaints about how it was shot. It is shot like a very classical horror movie, which very well done, by the way. And the atmosphere is just gorgeous. It's just dripping with October love. It's just like the seasonal what's it called? Haddonfield, I think it's called. I'm forgetting the name of it because I'm getting confused with a local town that I've been to in my life. But the season of October just looks beautiful. Halloween, it's dripping with Halloween, and I love, as most people should know, I love Halloween. So not the movie, I love Halloween the movie, but I'm talking about like the season of Halloween. I love it. So just watching this movie puts you in the perfect mood, getting excited for Halloween. And then, of course, it's a horror movie with a very classically done horror movie. It's not loud, it's not obnoxious, and it's just like everything works in terms of what they fit in the frame. There are a few times where the movie's a little bit too dark, where you can't really see what's going on. And I do feel like when I do get this on Blu-ray, which it's going to be first time in a review I've said this year. I can't wait to get the Blu-ray of this, where it probably won't look that good. And that is a little bit of a problem, the contrast of the movie, but I am willing to forgive it. It's not all the time. Most of the time you can see the movie pretty damn clear, and it looks beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't get to talk about music that much anymore, mostly because the music tends to be really bland, dull, boring, terrible. And most movies don't even try anymore to have a good original soundtrack or good scores. But if everything you hear about this movie, the soundtrack, all of it's true. The soundtrack is absolutely fantastic. It's stellar. This is one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a movie in a long time. John Carpenter came back to compose the movie. Yeah, he didn't direct it. That was David Gordon Green, which I'll get to him in a minute. But John Carpenter came back to compose this movie with his son Cody Carpenter, and they really composed beautiful magic here. It is the classic Halloween of course soundtrack, but just revamped and just made for a modern audience, and it sounds phenomenal. I loved it. I loved every moment that the music came on, and that's something that you don't get to experience nowadays, unfortunately. That does suck. Most movies nowadays, they don't focus too much on the music, and that's really bad. And one thing I was really hoping that the movie would do was the intro for the Halloween movie. Like how they always have the pumpkin and then the classic theme, in the background. I was really worried they weren't going to do that at first, and but damn, did they do it, and it was spectacular. And that was actually one of the highlights of the movie, where I just got super excited, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to enjoy this movie. When that intro just finally popped in, and I was just like, yeah, the movie got me. That I'm suckered in. I can't wait to see what happens, and the movie was the rest of the movie follows after that. Is very good, but that intro was one of the biggest highlights for me. And I'm not gonna say the other highlights, because I do want people to watch this movie. Something I want to mention about this movie too is two people that worked on it, David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. Who David Gordon Green was the director of the film, and Danny McBride was actually one of the writers. And I was very surprised to see this, because I mostly associate these two guys with comedy, especially Danny McBride. I've never seen him in anything really serious or dramatic, I guess, except for Alien Covenant, but that movie's shit, so I don't count it. But I was really surprised to see them, and I was like, oh, okay, hopefully they don't ruin it. But I have to say, they really did surprise me, especially David Gordon Green, like the director. He did a stellar job. And Danny McBride, I have a suspicious feeling that all he really did was add in a few jokes into the movie, which, if you are worried if this movie's funny, like obnoxiously funny, no, it's not. It has like a few like humorous lines in there, but it fits with the tone and it fits with like reality. Like they are real things that people would say. So that's one thing I have to say. Good on them. Good on Danny, I guess. And I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm just saying I have a suspicion that's what happened. But otherwise, they did a great job on the movie. They did a great job. Everybody involved with this film did a good job, and I do think that they deserve some bit of praise for how this came out. So to kind of start finalizing or summarize this review, where does this movie stand for me? For me as a horror fan. I love horror movies. Not modern horror movies. I've always been vocal about how much I hate horror movies nowadays, and I don't even bother anymore. You know that one horror movie, Hellfest? I don't know what the fuck it's called because I don't care. You know, I don't bother with them anymore, and I don't really watch horror movies anymore that are new. Every now and again, a few of them will catch my eye, like The Witch was one of them that caught my eye, but for the most part, I just kind of stay away, or It, or Don't Breathe. But then again, those movies, I still had a lot of problems with them. And even, like I said, even when I do find a movie that I do like It, I do like the movie, I think it's a good movie, but the horror elements of it are just abysmal, in my opinion, and I don't like that horror elements. I like more of the other stuff it had to go for it. And I really, you know, as a person, I really miss the old kind of horror movie style, you know, like where anything, you could do anything, there was no real rules, you know, they were just more, I guess you could say lawless. They didn't need to follow anything. They were just low budget movies that were coming out. And you have some great ones out there. You know, I always talk about Sleepaway Camp. I always talk about Tourist Tramp, Reanimator, you know, all the old the George Romero zombie films. Of course, Halloween, and of course, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Like all classic horror movies. Like I'm not going to name off all of them, but they have this feeling to them that just screams Halloween and screams October to me, and I always love watching them. And I always crave to find a new one or a new movie that gives me that same feeling. And quite honestly, I did find it. And it's Halloween. Halloween 2018 was a shock to me. It was an absolute shock to me. I was not excited to watch this movie. I was very skeptical. I was very cautious, and I went in and I loved it. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I don't think it's perfect. There are a few flaws within the movie that I can overlook, of course, but there are a few flaws. But right now, as it stands, you know, I went to a theater, a pretty shit theater, by the way, which, by the way, watching this movie in the theater was awful because there was a lot of annoying people behind us yelling at the screen, thinking that they were funny. So I can't wait to get this on Blu-ray so I can watch it by myself or with, you know, friends and family who will shut the fuck up while the movie's on, and I could just enjoy it and take in the atmosphere. And by the way, a very small complaint to people. If you use Fandango, I didn't use Fandango. We got in, we got our seats, we chose the seats, whatever. But we're watching the movie. It was me and my brother. And these three people, while the movie, like 10 minutes in, they're like, oh, those are our seats. And we're like, but we got these seats. Now, to those people, we were not going to move because we bought those seats. But if you come in and start bothering us, or if people come in and start bothering you, like, and you're 10 minutes into the movie, just tell them to kindly fuck off. Like, you guys chose to be 10 minutes late to the goddamn movie, and now you're bothering us when we're trying to watch the movie. We're trying to get suckered in, and you're just standing there just being an asshole, like, oh, we bought seats. But anyways, I'm sorry, that was a small rant. Anyways, the final verdict for Halloween is a 9 out of 10, and a strong recommendation if you're a horror fan, or if you're just a fan of movies, or hell, just fuck it, if you're a history nut, and you love movies, watch this movie. Fuck it. If you're a person, a human being, watch this movie. Another side note, by the way, and if you're a parent and you take your children to watch this movie, you're a bad parent. Don't take your children to watch this movie. And I'm saying this because this was another thing I saw. There was these two little kids watching Halloween, and the whole time I was thinking, these parents are fucking awful for making their kids watch Halloween. How despicable can you be? That's horrific. Like, I would never show my kids this unless they get old. But anyways, I recommend the movie. If you guys have seen the movie, let me know what you thought down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And, October is still here. I hope you enjoy it. Please watch some more Halloween shit. Watch some more horror movies if you can. I'll see you next time on One for a Review. And as always, have a nice day.